Thank you so much, Mentor. Reverend Allen, thank you for helping not only lead the effort to get to the truth, but keeping this family in your prayers as you have done so many more families, giving them support. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, along with Attorney Eric Ertz, Attorney Lisa Park, Attorney Ahmad Smith. We have the honor of representing the family of Nolan Wells. Obviously, you all have come to know his parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley. And this is hard. I heard Congresswoman McBath, who lost her son Jordan almost 12 years ago, and it's still raw and emotional when you hear her talk about the loss of a child. I mean, he's not coming back. And that is the story. Everything else is just, hyperbole, is distractions. The story is what happened to Nolan Wells. Somebody knows something. Somebody saw something. I'm thankful to Reverend Al Sharpton and Mr. Tyler Perry and Terrell Owens and Byron Allen putting up these rewards. I understand others have now put up rewards, and that's good because that means we all have the same objective. We want the truth about what happened to Nolan Wells, and it is urgent. It is urgent because each day that goes by, you worry, will we ever get to the truth? And so that's why we want to thank CBC for calling on the federal authorities and anybody else who has resources to help this family get to the truth of what happened to their son. I know I was talking to Kristen Clark, and she said, no, let's make sure that all taxpayers' money that goes to support federal resources apply to our children too. I mean, let's say that nobody should say, oh, it doesn't matter that much because it's a black child. No, it matters. All of our children matter. And so we are going to continue every day to say his name, Attorney Hertz, Attorney Park, Attorney Smith, trying to work with the local district attorney to give them what they need to do a thorough, fair, full, impartial investigation. That's what we're asking for. Everything else is just a distraction because Nolan birthday is next Wednesday, August 19th. It is going to be extremely difficult for his mother, his father, and his family because this August 19th will be like no other that they've ever had for the last 19 years. I mean, it's a milestone when your child gets to be 18 years old. You try to breathe a little easier every now. You say, man, we almost got them there. They're at the cusp of being an adult, cusp of manhood. And you heard how Elmore was working so hard, him and Nolan, his football career. I mean, he had a good start, but this was really going to be his year. I mean, so much hope, so much promise. And then July 4th came. And 4th of July will never be the same to Christine and Elmore. And on the 19th, next Wednesday, his family, we're all asking for prayer for Nolan. I know there's going to be a prayer visual in Ocean Springs. I know Reverend Al is going to work to make sure we're all praying all across the nation. But yeah, let's pray. Can we pray together in unity to say let's get to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. Can we do that, America? Can we at least come together in unity on his birthday? Everybody who claimed to ever be a friend of his, can we come together in unity and pray for the truth and try to have love in our hearts for this family, for this broken-hearted mother and father, his sisters and brothers? Can we try to give them grace and give them love and pray for their humanity, for their son who was lost on 4th of July and is never coming back? Is that so much to ask? Let's have a National Day of Prayer on August 19th, next Wednesday, for Nolan Wells. And at this time, we can hear from his mother and father, then Erica, and us will try to answer your questions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for having us, for platforming our son's story. As many of you know, his 19th birthday is next Wednesday. And it's, as the days get closer, it's definitely getting harder. That realization is really sinking in, that we don't have our son physically here anymore. And I think a lot of people have forgotten. Only thing we want to know is what happened. That's all we want to know, is what happened to our son. Because many parents out there, you still have your children. You still can hug them. You still can call them. You still can celebrate their life with them. And we do not have that anymore. Our lives have forever changed. This new normal is something I would never wish on anyone, not even my worst enemy. The hurt that we feel daily, the conversations that we have to have, not just with each other, but also with our other children as they are grieving as well. So we ask that everyone, please, next Wednesday, join us in prayer. As for us as a family, but also for everyone out there, but especially for Nolan and the process that we're going through. And again, we thank you so much.
First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who's constantly keeping our son's story in the forefront. You don't know how much we really appreciate that. Nolan brought life to our family. He was the fun in it. And with his birthday coming up, like my wife said, we have to deal with a new normal. Who knows what these years are going to bring, but we know that these years on August 19th is going to bring a lot of hurt, some laughter as we think about memories, but as far as our family, a very big piece will no longer be there. We just want the truth. We just want to know what any other parent would want to know. We're asking the questions any parent would ask. And if you feel that something's wrong with that, then that's a problem that you have to deal with. But as far as us and our family, we're just asking for truth, transparency, and to please keep us in your prayers. Next week is going to be a hard week, and the years follow are going to be hard.
Thank you very much, Christian and Elmore. It never gets easy, Reverend Al. And they're asking, I know Reverend Jamal Bryant is coming to Ocean Springs. Anybody who can come to Ocean Springs to be at the prayer vigil with them on a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., please come. And if you can't come, please have prayer vigils in your city and your communities. We need to find out what happened. Attorney Hurts, Attorney Parks, and Reverend Allen, as we're trying to answer your questions. The family obviously has motion that they'll try to answer questions if they can. Any questions? Yeah, what's up?
Well, my name's Logan John, an NBJ.
Yeah, give us where you're calling, where you.
That's NABJ News.
Okay.
What do you believe accountability and justice for Nolan Wells should look like?
It's very simple. As we always say, if it was your child, what will accountability and justice look like? Well, that's the same thing they want for their child. Whatever it would be for your child, that's the same thing they want. Whatever investigation you would do for your child, that's the same investigation they want. We not asking for anything special. We just want equal justice for our children too.
And I think that we must be very much emphasizing is they have said, again here with the press conferences and statements they've made throughout, when they started at our headquarters in Harlem speaking to the press, they're not trying to come to conclusion. The other side did, saying that there was no foul play. They're trying to tell us what happened. And we're going to stand with them on that, and as well as other cases around the country. Yes, sir.
I'm Ezekiel Telemacher with ABC 24. There's been a lot of misinformation and rumors spreading on social media. Is there anything that you guys would like to debunk that you've seen that has stood out to you?
Let me just say this. I wouldn't really.
Well, I mean, I think that social media has distorted a lot. I think for myself and Ben, we're public figures that you're going to have social media lie on us every day. I don't even know if I'm really here according to social media. But what hurts us is the distortions they've done on the family, where they've harassed her in her job and sent stuff to their house. Distorted with the father's question. They didn't ask to be public figures. They only are trying to get justice for their son. So I would just say, whatever social media people are trying to get likes and hits and all, do that against people like me that offered ourselves, but they didn't ask for this. All they want is what happened to their son.
And I'll simply say this, because that question has come up, and I released a statement, and I want to be clear about it. We defend the First Amendment rights of content creators reporting on Nolan Wells' case. We stand with content creators, independent journalists, and citizens who are responsibly reporting on the Nolan Wells case and asking legitimate questions in pursuit of truth and accountability. The First Amendment protects robust public discussion on matters of public concern, and those protections are not reserved just for traditional media. We are deeply concerned when cease and desist letters, threatened lawsuits, or other legal pressure become tools to intimidate or silence lawful scrutiny. There is an important difference between knowingly spreading false information and asking questions, examining. I want to make sure I get it exactly as we say it. Okay. There's an important difference between knowingly spreading false information and asking questions, examining evidence, identifying inconsistencies, expressing opinions, and demanding transparency. Reporting should not be silent. Reporting should not be silenced. and legitimate questions should not be met with intimidation. Those seeking truth and accountability in the Nolan Wells case have every right to continue asking questions and demanding answers, because we are America and we have a right to the First Amendment. That includes black people and all people.
Hi, Denise Clay Murray, Philadelphia Hall Monitor. My question is for Congressmember McBath. Has the formal request for the FBI from the Congressional Black Caucus been delivered to the FBI, and what deadline have you given them for a response?
We've actually we've actually written a letter, a formal letter, and it's already been executed. We've already sent it forth. We are giving them time to respond. We did not give them a specific deadline, but we did say that we are expecting to have an answer as soon as we possibly can.
Attorney Crump, Ryan Young from CNN. Thank you to the family again for standing here and talking to us. There's been a lot about the meeting that you were supposed to have with the DA's office and the cooperation that they were supposed to be giving. Can you update us and tell us whether or not the family has had any contact with the DA's office? Are they talking with you? Have investigators put their arms around you at all?
Attorney Eric Kurtz and Attorney Parkland.
I'm Eric Kurtz, law firm Eric J. Hurts, PC, and I am heading the independent investigation in this case. I think the first thing, before I get to the exact question, is what's worse than losing a child? Probably nothing. But what makes it horrible is not knowing, and transparency is the key. So with us going into this case as doing an independent investigation, we first thank all the people on stage, all the people that have helped, and we thank you, the media. We have had much communication with the district attorney, and I feel that is confidential. We have cooperated, I can tell you that, and we would just want to cooperate like anyone else would have to cooperate, and we're continuing to do that. The duty to our clients.
Just to address that specifically, you may already realize and already know there was a meeting on July 15th in Mississippi with the DA's office. At that meeting, there were several things discussed about the investigation regarding Nolan Wells and what happened to him. In that meeting, there were several things that were set out and agreed to, and we expect the DA, as well as our own team, to follow those agreements.
Yes, sir.
It's Greg Dunn. And it's Greg Dunmore from Post Beat Media out of Detroit, the ABC sister station TV20. Evil prevails when good men and women remain silent when the facts come out, and they will come out. If it indicates that something sinister did not happen and it was a freak accident, will you believe that the truth is still not being revealed? Because if the truth is not going to indicate on some level that something sinister was done, will you not believe it to be something else if the truth is that it was not?
If the truth comes out,
yes,
and it's clear, then we will accept the truth. That's all we're asking for. And we only have said that the people that are attacking them for raising the question of the truth say the same thing. I think that we've leaned over backwards in every press event, at the funeral, me doing the eulogy, saying we weren't going to prejudge. Yet they keep getting lambasted. Imagine this. You're losing your child and you're being attacked for asking what happened. I mean, they're not political figures. Why are they under attack for asking for the truth? So it's not about us accepting, it's about whether or not those involved can accept. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Nehemiah with Black Wall Street Times.
Well, they always try to shut us up. I will not be silent. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Nehemiah Franklin.
Don't move the mic, okay.
Try this again. Okay. Yes, Nehemiah Frank with the Black Wall Street Times out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Condolences to you both. My question is for Mr. Wansley. When you went to Jack's house and he used the past tense and literally said to you, from what you told us, the media, that the brother, or that he said that Nolan was like a brother a day before the body actually washed up, was that like alarm? Did it send any alarm bells through you at all?
Yeah, that's it. You said what you said.
Put yourself in a father's shoes and just found out that your child is missing. The only thing you want to know is where he is. Trying to go back and think about specific words at that moment, I wasn't thinking about that. My mind and my focus was finding my whereabouts of my son.
Hey, Tom Jones, reporter with WSB TV here in Atlanta. I keep hearing about this young lady that Nolan left with. Has anybody managed to find her or talk to her?
I think that what we're trying to carefully do is not impugn the investigation. So a lot of what may and may not have happened in terms of the dialogue with the lawyers and the family would not be prudent to testify on WSB Atlanta.
Hi, my name is Jahara Wilson with Blavity. You're calling on the Department of Justice to open an independent federal review of Nolan's death. What do you believe federal investigators could uncover that local and state authorities?
Let me clarify also, Congresswoman, want to get some clarity.
Also, I do want to clarify that we've given them 7 days to respond with 7 days. So I'm sorry about that. No worries.
Your question was, what do we hope to get from them, the federal investigation? What anybody will hope. We are taxpayers too. It's the federal resources that can offer resources to help investigate the matter thoroughly. And so Nolan was not only Christine and Elmo's child, but when you think about it in a philosophical way, he was all about our children. But by the grace of God, it could be our child next. And as American citizens, we have the absolute right to say our federal government should extend resources for our children like they will extend to everybody else. I would never forget when President Obama, with Reverend Al and I, when Trayvon Martin was unalive, and he said that it's important that we extend all of the resources of the federal government to help this family get to answers of the truth. And that's all you would want if it was your child. That's all they want if their child. Every resource available, help us get to the truth.
And let me say that and answer that. It's important that you understand that when we raise these issues, that's all what we wanted. We raised the issue, I was out front, Ben was the attorney with Trayvon Martin. And we finally got George Zimmerman in court. When the jury said not guilty, we said we disagreed, but we didn't go and attack his parents. We didn't go and chase him down. We accepted that. When we had the killing in Missouri with Michael Brown, and President Obama was president, we asked for the federal government to come in there. Eric Holder and them investigated the case and said there was no federal case that they could bring. We accepted that. So don't act like we don't accept it. We accept it when Michael Brown's case didn't go federal. We accept things when they're fair. But we want them to be fair. That's why I said, as the Congressman said, they're giving them 7 days. The FBI come back either way, but we want it reviewed by the Congress at some point. I'm on my way tomorrow to Madison, Wisconsin, to deal with Ruiz shot on camera. Why, man, there's a company trying to get a contract that is in business with ICE. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. We look at it from a civil rights point of view. They're dealing with it from their son. This is fresh blood.
Yes, ma'am.
Susanna Capiluto with NPR. Has the DA said anything to your attorneys regarding the joint investigation of the cell phone?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
Oh, sorry. Has the DA said anything, given any guidance on a joint investigation of the cell phone?
We are in constant communication, and just like anything, like to address the gentleman sitting next to you. What was your name again?
Greg.
Oh, Greg. Okay. You get 2 shots. Yeah.
This is Greg Dunmore.
Okay. Just to address Greg's question. You know, the truth has to be proven and shown with the methodology, the way they came about. Someone just can't come out and say, hey, I have a Ferrari, and then you believe they have a Ferrari. I don't have a Ferrari. The truth has to be shown. You got to bring them to your garage, show them the title. That's the truth. And yes, we will accept the truth. So the same way with what the young lady sitting next to you is saying, which is we have procedures that the courts require that we as lawyers ethically have to follow in order to turn over evidence. There's chains of custody. There's protected private information. And we are willing, in fact, today, I'm not doing anything the rest of the day, to meet with the FBI and our person, our expert, to go over that phone. And we've made that clear. So we're ready to do that at any moment.
Lisa just want to say one last point on that.
I'm going to back up a little bit. So just to clarify, what the agreement was that the DA's office, and this is the Jackson County DA's office, as well as our forensic team, and possibly the FBI, were going to together download and examine the phone. So it's done one time with everybody together, right? This is very common in the law. I mean, what you all may be more used to is when there's a terrible car accident, and then there's an examination of that car, and everybody comes together one time. They don't move that car around, and everybody does their own thing. This is what is supposed to happen. We are waiting for the DA to determine the time, the place, the date. Let us know, and we are going to be there with our forensics team and anybody else, but it's done one time, one examination. We're ready for it to happen.
Julie Walker, Associated Press. Can you give us a sort of a timeline or what's next going forward, including any possible lawsuits that would be filed, not against you, as you had mentioned before, but that you would be filing, and then the completion of the independent autopsy and how that's moving along, and anything else that would be moving forward? And I know you had mentioned you wanted that national day. Other than that, anything in the future?
Well, we want to make sure people understand we're going to follow the truth wherever it leads us. There's been a lot made about we want to come and bring some lawsuits. When Christine and Elmore called me, we weren't thinking about bringing a lawsuit. We were thinking about just helping them get to the truth. That is a vehicle that we can use to get to the truth if the facts tell us that. We send out preservation letters, and everybody said, oh, they're going to sue them. No. We send out preservation letters to preserve the evidence. Right. And in those standard letters, you say litigation is reasonably anticipated to say, don't get rid of the evidence. We're on record that we want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that's what's going to lead us in what we do. It's about the evidence, nothing else. And this family has always said from day one, even when I called Reverend Allen, we talked to him, they have been consistent. We want to know what happened to our child. Everything else is just, it's just clickbait and everything. It's about what happened to our child. Black press, NABJ, we need you now more than ever to keep everybody focused. What happened to this 18-year-old black teenager in Mississippi? Because there have been questions when you look at the history of the Deep South where young black people are unalive and nobody ever gets any answers. Well, we want Nolan Wells not to be like many others that came before him.
And that is why, as I said earlier, August 28th, the anniversary of Dr. King's March, Martin III and I called, we were doing a huge march in Washington, Lincoln Memorial. This will be highlighted in other cases because these things keep happening. And to protect the right to vote. So we intend to stay out on the battlefield as long as necessary. Yes.
And I'd ask about the independent autopsy.
We understand that Dr. Roger Mitchell made himself available at any point that the district attorney's office and the medical examiner will allow him to come. He's ready, willing, and able to go do it.
Brooklyn Banks with NABJ News. You mentioned just now that multiple cases have happened like this that are similar. What do you think about this case in particular being called race politics?
About this case in particular, what?
Being considered race politics?
I think that the race politics of this case has been the reaction. I think that we're not predetermining that the case was racial. We're determining that the answer, the investigation, has been racially divided, and that's what made it racial. Yeah, I'll take two more. This is a press. I'm not a revival. We're not going to be here all afternoon.
Yes, sir. Donald Sutton, be a loud voice. In particular, piggyback on what Attorney Trump said, is it the fact that this happened in Mississippi why it seems to be so difficult to get answers in regards to the young black man's death?
Did you say Trump or rather than Trump? I'm just trying to. Yeah, we're praying for you at the prayer meeting.
I want to keep an open mind. I know there have been several attacks on us just for asking questions, and it's okay. I mean, when you think about Mississippi, they attacked all my heroes. The governor's predecessors, they attacked, Ida B. Wells, Medgar Evers, my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, Dr. Martin Luther King, for saying that we're going to stand up for black life and black humanity and the right to black people to have the Constitution applied to them as American citizens. So I'm unapologetic in my defense of black life, black liberty, and black humanity. God has a calling on all our lives, and when you figure out what that calling is, you don't second guess it. You say, God, I know why I put on this earth, to be there to stand up for our people in times when they have nobody else to stand up for them. And so whether it's Mississippi or anywhere else in the deep South, or as Malcolm X said, I heard they discriminate against black people in the South. He said, I guess my definition of the South would be anything beneath the Canadian border, because last time I checked, they discriminate against black people all across America. And so what we're saying is we are open-minded. We want to trust them, but we can't be naive. We have to verify everything, as Attorney Hurt said. Whatever conclusions you come to, we want the methodology. Whatever investigation you're doing, we want to know that it's the same investigation that you would do with your child. Not treat Nolan any differently. That's what we're trying to do. That's all we're asking.
All right, we're going to take one more, and then we have to take the family out. Jesse Jackson Jr., who has his own radio show.
I represent KBLA today. Let me ask a question, Reverend Sharp and Reverend Trump, and even the Congresswoman. Nolan Wells' body was found on federal territory, Horn Island, run by the National Park Service. Are you aware of any death investigation opened up by the National Park Service into his death on federal land? First question, actually two parts. There have been 7 arrests made for the swimming pool, also run by the National Park Service. Why the disparity between arrests over the reflecting pool in front of the Lincoln Memorial and 0 arrests, subpoenas regarding the National Park Service in the case of Nolan Wells?
The answer, and I have the lawyer's answer, is that is why we raised it, thanks to the CBC and Congresswoman, to a federal level, because the federal government has to answer those questions of involvement, because Horn Island is federal property. And while they can have a grand jury indict around the reflection pool, then announce they pull them back the charges, now have with a new special grand jury. They done went to a pool twice and haven't come to Horn Island one time, and it was federal property. So I think that the contradiction there is why we keep raising the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, too, as a matter of record, you know, being in Congress, there is federal oversight. And I sit on Judiciary Committee in Congress. We also have the Senate Judiciary Committee. And oftentimes there are a lot of these kinds of investigations that come before us because we have the authority for oversight. So since this is considered, at this point, would be considered something of national federal interest, that is the reason why we're asking for the accountability to make sure that this is not just swept under the rug.
Thank you,
And I'll say in conclusion, thank you to the media. Now more than ever, the fourth branch of government, we need you. NABJ, we need you now more than ever. We're talking about Nolan Wells, but remember, there were two other 18-year-old black teenagers who were unalive in highly questionable situations. Tyler Smith and David Irvin. And we need to be talking about these children. We got, you know, the young lady, Alyssa Hackett, who was, I mean, brutalized by a state trooper and who cursed her. I mean, she's a tiny black teenager. And, you know, Reverend Allen, as we were looking at the video, as a girl dad, I mean, if a police officer can't have an interaction with a black teenage girl without body slamming her, cursing her, and punching her in the face, what does that say about where we're at in America in 2026? This is about covering those stories, even when people who may run your news outlets don't want you to cover the stories. We need you to give us a voice in the tradition of Ida B. Wells. We can't have the police just writing the narratives and the reports. We need you all writing those narrative reports. And you got to challenge your white counterparts and say it. Ida B. Wells said famously, Reverend Al, the killers write the police reports. No, we need NABJ to write the reports and the narratives. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Let me say the case that we have been dealing with now for the last several weeks around Nolan Wells is indicative of many cases around the country that have raised serious questions with racial overtones. Attorney Crump and I are going tomorrow, where I'm doing the eulogy for a young black man in Madison, Wisconsin, homeless, and they say had a knife, and there's the tape of him being shot, 3 cops surrounding him, shot and killed, 4 shots. And these cases building up in a climate of an administration in Washington that we cannot feel will objectively investigate. There was a time that we could say if state authorities fail us, we can go to the Justice Department. Even under George Bush, we went to the Justice Department. We, at this point, have to hope that one, we could deal with civil courts, or secondly, that there's a balance of power with the Democrats taking the House in November, And maybe the Judiciary Committee under that can at least put a check and balance on cases that need to be investigated. But we are right now where we have two parents, lovely parents, I've gotten to know them, that really don't have an answer to the question, is it a civil rights violation or not? And we do not know. How do you trust the words of people that say immediately there was no foul play when you haven't even investigated whether there was foul play? How do you trust people that come back from something that happened and never really give you a straight story of what happened, including you have the keys to the car? So when you have more questions than answers, you have to have people that will drive the answers out, and that's what we do. And that's why I've been involved, and that's why we stay involved. And it gets worse and worse and worse. The parent of one of the boys threatening to sue us for asking a question. Imagine that now. Some of y'all call it, what do you feel about the parents? One of the boys says he's going to sue you and Ben Crump. Sue us for what? For saying what happened? So we've gone back that far. And that is why we're going to stand with these parents, because usually, you know, I come from Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised there. I don't come from the South. But my mother used to bring me down south to my grandmother in Dothan, Alabama. And Congresswoman, my grandmother told me, you see that pen over there? I said, yes. She said, that's a pen of hogs and pigs. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, always know something. If you take a brick and you throw it in that pile, the hog that hollers is the hog you hit. There's too much hollering going on in Mississippi that we haven't hit something. I can't figure out which one we hit, but we hit something. Because now they talking about lawsuits, they threatening threatening a mother of a child, trying to get her job taken. You wouldn't be hollering if we wasn't hitting something. And we're going to stay on that, and we're going to stay on it all the way. In light of that, before attorney, and I call him the Attorney General of Black America, gives us the legal basis, and then we hear from the parents. Congresswoman who lived herself through dealing with the whole tragedy of her own son. That's how we met. On a plane. She was a flight attendant at the time. And she stopped me on the plane and said, "Well, man, why ain't you dealing with my son's case?" And we started a relationship. She ended up being elected right here in Georgia and reelected. They redrew her lines, and she was reelected anyhow. The lines couldn't reduce the favor of the people. Congresswoman Lucy McBath.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to Reverend Al Sharpton, and also thank you to Attorney Crump for being the armor bearers for this family, the Nolan's family. It's a really, really sad occasion that we're here again. I was just saying to my staff on the way in, it's like this brings back so many vivid memories for me and my own family, having lost Jordan to unnecessary gun violence in November 2012, Black Friday, simply because he was black and playing loud music in his car. And so here we are again today, here for the loss of another black young man in our community. And we find ourselves asking the same questions. How did it happen? Why did it happen? This family stands here demanding answers. This family deserves answers. I myself sought the same justice for my son Jordan that they're seeking for theirs, and they deserve answers. And they deserve justice. Justice that should not be denied this family, or should ever be denied to any of our children or our lost loved ones. As a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, I'm the second vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. We are demanding a full federal investigation Kash Patel. We're demanding a full federal investigation as to what has actually happened to Nolan Wells. We want to make sure that every stone is unturned because his life matters. All of our children's and our families' lives matter. And we must fight back. We must stand up and we must demand accountability for this family's loss. We cannot turn a blind eye to what continues to happen again and again and again. That's the reason why I ran for Congress, to make sure that we continue to put a face on what's happening to our families and our communities every single day. We must say Nolan's name.
Amen.
Say his name. Lift his name. And as the national black journalists of this country, you have the ability to be able to lift this story and not let it die. We see over and over again these kinds of tragedies in our communities that continue to happen. And they make it to CNN. They make it to MSN Now. They make it to our local news for maybe 30 days, if that. And then the stories are gone. And the carnage is left with the families and the communities that have lost someone that they love. So I thank the National Black Journalists. Thank you for lifting this family story. Do not let it die. Continue to say his name. Continue to tell his story, because they deserve justice, and it matters. It mattered for me. It mattered for Trayvon. It mattered for Eric Brown. It matters for all of our loved ones that we have lost.
As Attorney Crump comes, let me say, as Congresswoman McBath has said, the caucus has asked federal government to look into it. For those of us that are worried about the politicalization of the present administration, that is why January becomes important, that we have a judiciary committee that can also monitor when investigation happens now or does not happen. So it won't end there. They may come out with any announcement they want in the next month or so. We're having the big march August 28th in Washington, we must deal with voting rights, so we have the right people in, so we can check and balance. I want to say to people in Mississippi, whatever investigation you come with, once we have a fair and balanced government, your investigation will be investigated. It will not end with what they say in Mississippi. Attorney General of Black America, Benjamin Crump.
A father stands outside a house that is not his own, waiting for a set of car keys that should have taken 30 seconds to find. It takes almost an hour, and when those keys finally appear, they don't come from the friend who swore he didn't know where they were. They come from a phone call, a girl, on speaker, telling a room full of grown men exactly where to look, on top of an Xbox, in the missing boy's own bedroom. That boy is Nolan Wells. He was 18 years old, and more than a month after his body was pulled from the water off a barrier island on Mississippi's Gulf Coast, the official autopsy has been finished for weeks, and no one outside a locked room has been allowed to read it. This video contains descriptions of a young person's death and discussion of threats made against people connected to the case. If that's difficult for you, please take care of yourself first. Before any of this became a national story, Nolan Wells was just a kid from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, heading into his second year playing college football at Southwest. Friends and family describe him the same way, over and over: a peacemaker, the one who noticed when someone in the room had gone quiet, the one who filmed everything, practical jokes, cooking disasters, his mother mid-sentence, unimpressed. Those who knew him say faith mattered to him, family mattered to him, and according to people close to him, he almost never let his phone leave his hand, a detail that will matter a great deal later in this story. On the morning of July 4th, 2026, he did what a lot of 18-year-olds do on a holiday weekend. He said goodbye to his parents, told them he'd be at a friend's house on the coast, and drove off to spend the day at Horn Island with a group of guys from high school, an uninhabited barrier island a few miles off the mainland, usually packed with boats and coolers and fireworks smoke by early afternoon. He was the only black member of the group. By that evening, he was the only one who didn't come home. Nolan's mother, a nurse, spent the evening at home with her sister, waiting for a text that never came. Around 11 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail. On the other end was one of the young men Nolan had traveled with. He told her Nolan had met a girl on the island, someone named Katie, and decided to stay behind with her rather than come back with the group. She says she knew immediately that didn't sound right. Not because she doubted her son could talk to a stranger, but because staying alone on an island after dark, without telling his own parents, wasn't something friends said Nolan did, ever. Then came the second detail that didn't sit right: Nolan's phone. The friend on the phone told her they had it. It had been left behind. For a mother who says her son practically lived attached to that device, that single sentence turned confusion into panic. What followed, according to the family, was not a rescue operation. It was a scavenger hunt through a jurisdictional maze. She called Mississippi's Marine Resources Department. They said it might not be their jurisdiction. They'd check. They called back and pointed her toward the local police department in Ocean Springs. She drove there. Officers told her it wasn't their jurisdiction either, because the island sat outside city limits. She was told to call the county sheriff instead. Somewhere around midnight, a Jackson County deputy finally agreed to take a report, not at a station, but in a McDonald's parking lot. By the family's account, no boats were sent out to search that night. The only people who went looking were Nolan's own parents, his high school football coach, and a family friend with a private boat. Ordinary people, walking an island in the dark with flashlights, while the official search wouldn't begin in earnest until the next morning. The next day, Nolan's father went to the house where the group had been staying to collect his son's car and belongings. What happened there is the detail that, more than any other, seems to have convinced Nolan's parents something was being hidden from them. First, he says, he was told his son had chosen to stay behind for a girl, something he insists was completely out of character. Second, he was told Nolan's phone simply wasn't with him, despite Nolan's own habit of filming everything, all the time, everywhere he went. Third came the keys. When he asked for them directly, he was told no one knew where they were. He waited. Minutes passed. It was only after another friend, on a call with someone who'd been on the island earlier that day, said out loud where the keys actually were, sitting in plain sight on top of a video game console in Nolan's own room, that they suddenly appeared. 3 separate claims, 3 reversals. Nolan's father has said publicly that after that day, he no longer believed anything he was told by the people his son had spent his final hours with. To be clear about what is fact and what is allegation here, it is a documented fact that Nolan did not return with the group, that his phone and keys were initially reported as unaccounted for, and that both were later located at the same residence. It is the family's account, not an independently confirmed fact, that they were deliberately misled about each of these details in sequence. Those are 2 different things, and this video will keep treating them as 2 different things. Nolan's body was recovered on July 6th, in the water near Horn Island, not far, his family has pointed out, from where he was last reportedly seen. Investigators publicly stated within the first 48 hours that they had found no signs of foul play. His parents have said, repeatedly and pointedly, that this conclusion was reached before a single thorough search had even taken place. Their son, they note, was a college athlete, a strong swimmer, in excellent physical condition, and the island, on a holiday weekend, had reportedly held several hundred people. Somebody, they argue, should have seen something. The Jackson County District Attorney's Office has since said publicly that ruling out immediate criminal urgency early on is not the same as closing a case, and that Mississippi law generally requires unnatural or unexplained deaths to be sent to a grand jury as standard procedure, not just this one. Both of those things are now part of the public record. What remains unresolved is the space between them, why no foul play was said out loud so early, and why so many basic questions, the timeline, the phone data, the conflicting accounts from the island, still don't have public answers more than a month later. Within days, this stopped being a local story. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump got involved, along with Reverend Al Sharpton's organization, and the family held their first national press conference not in Mississippi, but in New York. Tyler Perry paid for Nolan's funeral. Actor Terrell Owens and media executive Byron Allen added reward money for information. Congresswoman Lucy McBath, whose own son was killed in 2012, became one of the loudest voices demanding a federal review. The attention brought scrutiny most families never have to survive. It also brought something else, a swirl of competing narratives online, half-verified leaks, and, as we'll get to, people who decided the right response to a grieving family's questions was to threaten them. In the weeks that followed, Nolan's mother, a working nurse, became a target in a way few people expect when they're simply trying to find out what happened to their child. Her employer received one-star reviews about care she was later confirmed not to have given. Then someone, anonymously, filed a professional misconduct complaint against her with the Mississippi Board of Nursing. As of this month, that complaint has been closed. The board found nothing to support it. Ben Crump has publicly called it what he believes it was, an attempt to intimidate a grieving mother into silence, filed by someone unwilling to put their own name on it. She said, in her own words, that she understood the board had a duty to look into it regardless of where it came from, and that she respected that process even while living through it. What she hasn't done, at any point, is stop asking for answers. Here is where the story stands technically, and it is worth being precise about it, because a lot of what's circulated online is not accurate. The official state autopsy was completed roughly a month ago. Its findings have not been released to the public, and according to the district attorney's office, will not be. Not to reporters, not to the family's own legal team in full, not to anyone, until they are first presented to a Jackson County grand jury. The DA has said publicly, more than once, that this is standard practice in her office for virtually every unnatural death in the county, not a special measure invented for this case. A separate, private autopsy commissioned by the family's legal team returned a preliminary finding of its own. Cause of death listed as undetermined, pending further review. Neither autopsy, the official one or the family's independent one, has produced a public conclusive answer for how Nolan Wells died. That is a fact, not a rumor. Anyone telling you they've seen the real toxicology report is telling you something Mississippi state officials have already gone on record calling fraudulent. A document claiming to be Nolan's toxicology results has been circulating on social media, and state officials have explicitly and publicly said it is fake, manufactured, not leaked. If you see it shared, the responsible thing to do is not share it further. Separately from either autopsy, a private investigative team working with the family's attorneys completed a lengthy independent review, more than 20 pages, analyzing photos, videos, GPS data, and witness statements from that day. Its conclusion isn't a verdict. It doesn't claim to know what happened to Nolan. What it does say is that there is a material gap in the timeline, a stretch of time between the last moment anyone can independently confirm where Nolan was, and the moment the group's boat is reported to have actually left the island, that current evidence does not account for. That's a careful, deliberately unsensational way of saying the story investigators have been given so far has a hole in it, not proof of wrongdoing, a hole. Whether that hole gets filled by evidence still to come, or whether it becomes the permanent, unanswered center of this case, is something only the grand jury process can determine now. As the case grew louder online, so did the ugliest corners of the internet. Federal authorities have charged 3 separate people, in different states, with no apparent connection to Nolan, his friends, or the investigation, with making threats against a judge, a witness, and local officials tied to the case. It's a detail worth sitting with, because it complicates the easy version of this story that some corners of the internet want to tell. These weren't threats from the other side of some local dispute. They were strangers, hundreds of miles away in some cases, escalating a real family's grief into something dangerous, against people who, by the FBI's own account, had no direct involvement in what happened to Nolan at all. Meanwhile, some of the young men who were on the island that day have hired their own legal representation and pushed back publicly against what they call unfair suspicion, saying they cooperated fully with investigators from the start. Both things are true at once. A family that has been targeted with harassment for asking questions, and a group of young men who say they're being publicly tried for something no charges currently allege they did. This video isn't going to pretend those two realities cancel each other out. They don't. They're both part of why this case has become so combustible. It's impossible to talk honestly about this case without talking about where it's happening. Mississippi carries one of the heaviest historical weights in America when it comes to Black lives lost under circumstances. Law enforcement moved quickly to close. Nolan's family and their attorneys have said, carefully, that they are not claiming to know this was racially motivated, only that they don't know that it wasn't, and that the speed of the no foul play conclusion, paired with that history, is exactly why they're refusing to accept it at face value. That distinction matters. It is the difference between an accusation and a demand for scrutiny. His family has said outright, on camera, that they will accept whatever the truth turns out to be. They simply want the same thoroughness applied to their son's case that would be applied to any other family's child. In late July, that demand traveled beyond Mississippi entirely. A Congressional Black Caucus letter formally asking the FBI for a federal review, and hundreds of miles away in New Orleans, a second-line procession moved through the streets in Nolan's honor, organizers saying plainly that the point wasn't outrage. It was making sure his family knew they weren't carrying this alone. As of now, the path forward is set, even if the timeline isn't. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department investigation has to formally conclude. Once it does, the district attorney's office has said the full case file, both autopsies, the phone data, witness statements, and the independent timeline report, goes to a grand jury, whose job is simply to decide whether the evidence supports criminal charges against anyone. That grand jury has not yet convened as of this recording. There's no public date. The DA's office has said giving one in advance risks compromising the process, and for now, that's the honest, if frustrating, state of the case. Nolan Wells would have turned 19 this month. His family has asked, instead of quiet grief, for a public one, a national day of prayer, and a request that echoes everything they've said since the first press conference. Not outrage, not conclusions, just the same investigation any parent would want for their own child. There is still no public answer to the most basic question in this case. What happened to Nolan Wells between the last confirmed sighting of him on that island and the boat leaving without him? Not a theory, not a rumor, an answer. Until the grand jury acts, that gap stays open, and so does this story. If you've been following this case, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from tonight. And if you want to be here when the next update on this case breaks, that's what subscribing is for. I'll keep covering this one honestly, fact by fact, for as long as it takes to get real answers.